Hello, everybody, and welcome to PeaceHealth Celebration for Hispanic Heritage Month. I'm Dr. Erica Torres. I'm the Assistant Vice President of Mission Integration here at PeaceHealth, and I'm also the executive sponsor for the Comunidad Caregiver Affinity Group. I'm really honored and thankful to have you all join us today for what I know will be a fantastic and insightful conversation with the incredible Doctora Antonia Novello. But before we introduce Dr. Novello and jump into our conversation, I'll quickly pass it over to Kayla Torres, one of our co-chairs of our Comunidad Caregiver Resource Group, to share today's reflection.
Thank you, Dr. Torres. So just wanted to share a brief but very insightful and impactful reflection to start us off today. From the words of Carlos Santana, great musician, the most valuable possession you can own is an open heart. The most powerful weapon you can be is an instrument of peace. And I think as we know, the times that we're navigating and the mission that we have as an organization is just something really powerful to hold in mind. So something to reflect upon, and I'm going to hand it back over to Dr. Torres.
Well, thank you so much, Kayla. I want to take a moment to briefly introduce Doctora Novello. We are so excited that she's joining us today and celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. Doctora Antonia Coelho Novello was born in Fajardo, Puerto Rico, and she graduated from the University of Puerto Rico with a BS degree in 1965 and an MD in 1970. And she completed her subspecialty training in pediatric nephrology at the University of Michigan and Georgetown University. And Dr. Novello received a master's in public health from the Johns Hopkins School of Hygiene and Public Health in 1982 and a doctor of public health in May 2000. She holds countless awards, including the Legion of Merit, the James Smithson Bicentennial Medal, and the National Governors Association Distinguished Service to State Government Award, as well as a membership in the Alpha Omega Alpha Medical Society and Institute of Medicine of the National Academy of Sciences, to name a few, and over 53 honoris causa. In 2011, Dr. Novello received the Don Quixote Lifetime Achievement Award. And I want to say just a little bit more, I know, to Dr. Novello's disdain, but I think it's important for us to hear a little more about who she is. On March 9, 1990, Dr. Antonia Novello was sworn in by Supreme Court Justice Sandra Day O'Connor to serve as the 14th Surgeon General of the U.S. Public Health Service. Her appointment marked two firsts. Dr. Novello became the first woman and the first Hispanic ever to hold this position. As Surgeon General, Dr. Novello advised the public on health matters such as smoking, AIDS, diet and nutrition, environmental health hazards, and the importance of immunization and disease prevention. On June 30th, 1999, Governor George E. Pataki nominated Dr. Novello to be the 13th New York State Health Commissioner, one of the leading health agencies in the nation, with a $49 billion budget, 1/3 of the whole New York State budget. Most recently, Dr. Novello served as the Executive Director of Public Health Policy at Florida Hospital. She currently serves as a liaison between the government of Dominican Republic and its Attorney General on raising the awareness of domestic violence and spearheading efforts for national legislation. So welcome, Doctora Novello. It's without a doubt that you have an expansive resume with world-changing accomplishments and milestones. And however, I do want to rewind to the beginning a bit. What pivotal moment in your life made you determine to become a doctor and build a career in public health?
Well, I have the feeling all of us have a way by which we acquire the way we are going to be when we grow up. And I have the feeling that having been in the hospital 2 weeks every single month until I was 18, from about the age of 8, you kind of realize that there are people around you that are nurses and doctors that look so caring and are so good that all of a sudden you want to be one of them. But the main reason was I was born with one of those congenital things that happens in the colon, and I needed 2 weeks every summer to be there. And then All my life, I only saw people that were helping people. And so I decided, my aunt, my favorite aunt, was a nurse. And so I decided that maybe the career in medicine was very good. And I used to call her Mami Loli, and she took me to her hospital where she was working, and she told some of the doctors there that I wanted to be a doctor. I must have been just a high school kid. And I remember they laughed so hard at it, but not with pride, almost with sorna, you know. Uh-huh, I'm going to be a doctor. And now I say to them, where are you, darling? Yes, I became a doctor, and I became the doctor of the land. So that is a great lesson to never, never underestimate the desires of a young person. Don't laugh at, help them accomplish it. And sometimes I wonder if that's something that we should do much more common than what we do today. Mentoring is hard, especially if you really care for your people.
Yeah. Can you say, do you have a sense of what it was why they were laughing, what it was they were laughing at?
Well, now that I am a physician, two things I have realized. There's a lot of sarcasm in the profession when you are there, and the other ones is just at the bottom. And also, I think medicine is losing its humanity. It's almost made it. I don't care who wants to make it, but I wish you well, but I don't think I'm going to give you a hand, you know, more or less in that sense. And maybe that's why we have 6,500 physicians, Latinos in the United States, for a population of 18.7% of us, or 62 million. So somewhere along the way, someone has tried to keep us behind, not giving us the opportunities. And even now, hyphenating your name doesn't make too much sense in entering in great universities. So we have to do much more for our education beyond the high school, which is still, I think it's only 72,000 of us. But the good thing is that since 2019, I think it is, 26% of us enter university at the level of 4 years, not just at the 2 years level that we have so accustomed, because mom and dad does not want us to be too far away from home. And in loving us, they are not giving us the wing to fly. Because if you really did your values with us, we will come back and we will serve the community when we're done. But trying to keep me protected from what you think is going to be something that is not too good, you have really, in a way, stifled the progress of so many of us that could have been bigger.
Thank you. What was it like for your family when you were accepted to medical school?
They didn't know.
Can you say more?
Well, the issue is, somewhere along the way, when you're a Hispanic woman in a little town, you never really value your capacities. And you're so afraid of the people laughing at you. And mommy was the principal of the junior high school. So whatever felt wrong for me, it would be something that was looking too bad on her. So I never told anybody. I took the test. I wanted to be a doctor, period. So I took the test. And when I walked into the room, it was really interesting. Now I know that there's a thing called Kaplan, study books. I never knew. I walked in that room, and every single desk had a Kaplan, which now I know it was a Kaplan. I just thought it was another book for entering for medical school. So I took my test, I passed it. And so that only is another lesson learned. Do not underestimate your capabilities. Others will do it for you. So think about yourself and your capacities, and then just go and tackle anything that you think that is there for you and that you have studied for. I never did, but I did high school and college. So I went, I took it. And it was really interesting that I never told my mother, because the failure issue is always very high in our accomplishments, because we're so afraid of failing. And I always tell people, don't be afraid to be number one. I always tell them, remember, the ark was built by amateurs and the Titanic by professionals. So don't be afraid of being number one. But we are afraid. So anyway, when I got the letter saying you have passed the test and you have please come for an interview, that's the first time I told my mother. And so mommy was the principal of school, and in my family, everybody's a teacher or a nurse. So I have the feeling mommy wanted me to be a teacher like her. And so when I went to her, I said, Mommy, look at this letter. I have been accepted to the School of Medicine. She didn't faint. She didn't fall on the floor. She didn't scold me. She says, if you really want to do that, and as long as there is a bank that lends me money, you're going to go to medical school. And that was the way it was. But the issue that was very important when I was a kid, I always told my mother, why am I called Antonia? Why am I the frustrated effort of a man who wanted a boy? Why can't I be something else that is not Antonia? By that time, it was Antonia Coelho. And mommy says, someday you're going to feel proud of your name, because at this moment, your father wanted a boy and you are Antonia. So as much as we can do what you can with your name. And now that I am a surgeon general, I figure, could there be a surgeon general by the name of Bambi Jones? It just doesn't go. It looks better like Antonia Coelho Novelo. You mean business with that name. But I'm telling you about the name because when I look into the list, I was not in the list of acceptance after I had my interview. And so I asked, am I in the list? They said, no. I said, can I look at the list? They really look, I was obnoxious. So when I look at the list, interesting, my adorable name had put me under Antonio. So Antonia was not accepted, but Antonio was. And so finally, when I was able to say, I am Antonia and the disgrace of my name, so finally everything was settled and I started medical school. So a mother that is never afraid to say, you want to go there, you go there. And then the other interesting part is when I finally graduated from medicine, I married my blind date. And when I married my blind date, he had just finished a complete full-time internship on surgery. And when he asked me, what do you want to do? I said, I want to be a surgeon. And he says, well, let's put it this way. Do you want to be a married pediatrician or do you want to be a single surgeon? So I became a pediatrician, but God is great. Then God made me the Surgeon General of the United States, something that I have never let him forget.
So actually, I want to talk about that a little bit. It's 1990, and you received that once in a lifetime call. Was it a call or a letter or a meeting? Tell us, where were you and what ways did that call or share with us that moment where you received that offer to step in as a U.S. Surgeon General?
Well, if you plan where you want to go, that's very important. You expect everything out of life because you're just a human that is trying to do the best. Sometimes it doesn't happen. So failure should not be something that deters you from your purpose. And there was a failure before I became Surgeon General, in the sense that I have married a flight surgeon of the US Navy. And so when the US Navy hospital in Washington, D.C. was looking for a nephrologist, I am a specialist in kidneys. So I went trying to tell them, I'm ready. I would love to give back to the government, having married a military man. And so it was really interesting. This captain walked into the room, put his feet on the desk, and proceeded to read the Washington newspaper right in my face. That's the only time that I really feel I have felt prejudiced. And so at the end of looking at that, he turns the newspaper, looks at me and says, did you hear? We're looking for a few good men. And that was the end of the interview. That man, perhaps today, has no idea how he helped me, because I was so incensed that I crossed the street, which is the Wisconsin Avenue, from Bethesda Naval to the National Institutes of Health, and I joined the United States Public Health Service on that day. So when this man looks at the inability to have helped me join the Navy, he helped me join another one of the uniformed services that have been able to be in my life with more accomplishments than if I would have stayed in a military post for no more than 3 to 6 years. So as much as I hated him in that second, as much as now I appreciate his stupidity. But the issue in this one is I work at the National Institutes of Health from many ranks, from lieutenant until I went all the way to captain at the National Institutes of Health, subdivision of the Pediatric Institute, where I became the deputy director. And at that time, after 12 years, I realized that I had done 3 things that perhaps had caught the attention of people in politics or people in powerful places. I had been able to make a book that suggested that women should be able to go into the research. And for that reason, I was always part of the committee that decided if women pay taxes, women should have their own research. And that's when Bernadine Healy became the director of the NIH. And after 20 years, we were able to have our own research, individuals for men. But the thing that was very important, I also was able to do the pediatric AIDS task force report for the HHS, at which time we realized that children under the age of 5 were really very much dying secondary to HIV/AIDS that no one was talking about. I think it was the leading cause of deaths of children below 5. And then the third thing is that Dr. Koop, I am a career officer of the Public Health Service. I am not someone who wears the uniform and then goes home in 4 years. I am a career officer. I came through the ranks. And so Dr. Coop had asked me to help him in the revitalization of the public health service. And so I became the chairman, and that's when we decided who would be an admiral, who would be a two-star admiral. And all the things that were there, we did it in order for people to know exactly the rules and regulations of the public health service. So it figures that with that report, with the AIDS report, and with the what today would be STEM, I was in the lights of someone who was looking. So I got a call from Dr. Mason. Dr. Mason was the Assistant Secretary of Health at that time, and he had been the CDC director previously. We knew each other. We knew each other better when I was doing the AIDS report for children, having to always talking to the CDC. And then Dr.
What year was that, Dr. Novello? Sorry for the interruption. What year was that during that AIDS work?
That was 1989, 1990.
Okay.
Must have been 9, because 1990 is when I became Surgeon General. So Dr. Mason calls me and says, Tony, I'm calling you. The secretary wants to see you on Labor Day weekend, the day after Labor Day weekend. And immediately, typical Latina, what have I done wrong? And so he said, nothing is wrong. It's just that he wants to talk to you. I said, do you have any idea what he said? He says, no, but let me ask you a question. If you ever wanted a job in government, which job would that be? And I said, oh, I want to be your deputy. And he says, I have a deputy. I said, that's what I wanted, because I don't want to leave NIH. So he says, well, he wants to see. So I said, okay, I'll be there. So I looked into what was happening in the system at that time, and I realized that the United States in 1989, 1990 had never had a woman, apart from Bernadine, who was the first one, in the agencies of the public health system, which at that time were 13. I think now they're 22. So I said, which is the one that is empty, looking for somebody? And I thought it was HRSA. So I went ahead and HRSA, I memorized everything about HRSA, you name it, because we're going to see Dr. Sullivan, and I knew he was going to offer me that in my mind. I was going to know, but I always believe that when you really want something, you leave them wanting. You just don't walk around. No, but you leave them thinking, God, it would have been great. She would have joined. So I knew everything. So I go to.
So you were going in to say no to the HRSA position.
No, I am not leaving the National Institutes of Health.
Yeah.
And so it took a while to get there, and I'm about to lose it. And the deputy of one of the major institutes, you got to be kidding. So at that moment, when I walked to see Dr. Sullivan, we know each other because he was a member of the task of the board of the Cancer Institute, and I knew him very well. I walk in there, he asked me how are things, the usual. And then all of a sudden he says, I guess you know why you're here. I say, more or less, thinking is HRSA. He says, well, good that you know more or less. He says, well, let me offer you formally the job of Surgeon General of the United States. At that time, I would think that it's time for me to say, Dr. Sullivan, what an honor. No, he got me so much by surprise that I went, what? He fell back just like me. You had not heard about it? I said, never. He said, well, why don't you sit down there and I'm going to tell you a little bit about what is the expectations that I have. Now, you must remember, I was following Dr. Coop, the god of public health, the tall man with the big beard and the big belly. I was going to follow Dr. Coop. You got to be kidding. And so first was my boss. I just wasn't ready for that. Anyway, after he explains everything, and I find that it's a job that is very much with big responsibility. You are the eyes and ears of the presidency. You are selected by an organization, approved by the US Senate for 4 years, and then you can only be fired by the president. But the public is the one who judges you. So it's like, hello, at the Institutes of Health, I am watched by the other heads of the departments, but I'm not going to be watched by 313 million, which is what they were there before. So anyway, never be afraid to be number one. So I said, yes. And so here comes what is the typical politician in every single department. And he asked Dr. Sullivan, how has it been? He says, well, she accepted the position. He said, she did? Okay, so he comes to me and he asks me, may I ask you, what have you done for the political party, for the Republican Party? And I say, me? Nothing. He looks at Dr. Sullivan, like thinking, are you out of your mind? She's never going to make it. And I say, wait, I am a career officer of the Public Health Service. And the Hatch Act prohibits me of doing any interactions with political parties. all of a sudden I thought to myself, gee, many crickets, where did I pull that one? But it worked. And so I asked, what now? They said, you have to go to the office of personnel of the White House, and then you have to meet with the chief of staff, and then we have to get your hearing date, and then we do the juramentación, and then the rest is history. So that's how it happened. The issue that was really interesting at that time, they had this sensitivity issue of the pink slip, and it was the big issue was reproductive rights and the like, and people were being fired right and left. So I went to the Department of Personnel, and no questions were asked. And then I went to see the chief of staff of President Bush, who happened to be John Sununu, who no one ever knew that his mother was from El Salvador, and therefore we did our own little interview in Spanish. He never asked. Next thing I said, what now? They said, well, you have to be in the schedule for the hearings, and that was perhaps early December. So they sent me to Geneva for 2 months so that I would be out of everybody's hair and no one would be following me for interviews and the likes. And so when I came back, it has been the longest period between the time that one gets nominated to the time that one gets sworn in. So finally, the Congress entered, I think in the beginning of last part of February. I was sworn in March 9th of 1990. And I was Surgeon General until June 1993, with 9 months to go, because President Clinton had come into the presidency and declared that Joycelyn Elders was going to come from Arkansas and substitute for me. I have the feeling somewhere along the way, no one ever discussed the issue that the Surgeon General is 4-year term by the US Senate. But who is going to go against the president? Not me. I am a career officer. So that's how it happened.
Wow, what a powerful story. And, you know, under your tenure as Surgeon General, you led and delivered monumental projects. You know, I'm thinking about, it's the early 90s. There were so many projects, initiatives, and reports, from the tobacco and AIDS reports to your initiatives focused on improving access to healthcare in underrepresented communities, particularly Latino and Hispanic Americans. Can you walk us through some of those projects and campaigns that you led?
Well, the most important thing is that the Office of the Surgeon General has no budget. So with $1 million, you have to get your equipment, your salaries, your travel, everything. And so the first thing that I did is they told me that the White House had furniture. So I went and got all furniture, and I got money for reupholstering, but not for new furniture. And so it took a long time for my furniture to come. And then I realized that the reupholstering of furniture in government is done by the US prisoners. So the prisoners assumed that I was the Attorney General rather than the Surgeon General. So it took a long time for them to finish the furniture, you know. So finally I get my furniture and things are okay. And I said, you know, one of the important things that I was told is you must have an agenda. In the absence of money, the NIH and all the other agencies will come your way, send you a person to your office, borrow with the salary paid by the institute, and then they'll bring something that they want you to champion. So if you have your own agenda, you become, in a way, the spokesperson for the institutes and not the spokesperson for the land. So I think it was good that we did one agenda. And one of the agendas, things that I did, obviously tobacco has to continue, but I took underage drinking, because underage drinking, 5 shots, one after the other, was really rampant in adolescents in the United States. The other one was vaccination. The United States was only 62% vaccination in that time. I took women's health issues because it was extremely important. And obviously I took on AIDS. And so each one of them was extremely important, and each one of them had a different follow-up. But then I said, I have to do the Hispanic agenda. And believe me, it took me more time to be able to get the title than to get the people together to come with the facts. And the reason it prompted me the Hispanic agenda, it was at that time in the CDC, even though we had rampant HIV/AIDS, we were under the category of others. We were not an ethnic group, we were not a race, others. So I thought, after we have the Hispanic agenda, they are going to have to give us our place. So people didn't know what name to give us. I think right now we would have even more difficulty. It would have been probably now would be Hispanic, Latino, Latinx, and it would have been kiss of death. At that time, it was between Latinos and Hispanics. What are we? And I say, and are we Chicanos? I said, we are Hispanic/Latinos. Let's move it. We have things to do. So that was the time. So then I decided we are many many groups within one ethnic group. And therefore, I cannot tell you, it's almost like equity and equality. It's not equal for all, it's what we need according to where I live. And therefore, we drafted about 5 things that we needed between research, representation, prevention of disease. And I divided the United States in 5 places. So New York, we went to Chicago, and then we went to California, and then we went to Florida, and then we went to Texas. Every group had the same agenda, but every group had to be able to come with the things as it pertained to their groups, in spite of the fact that it could be Mexicans, it could be a mixture, like it was in Chicago. So we put it together, and that became the Hispanic agenda. But it was really interesting. Ours was drafted before the one that Mrs. Clinton was trying to pass at that time was ready. And however, we were never called to ask us, what are the needs that you have come up, having done a first evaluation of the land for Latinos than they would have had done and just having passed something at that moment that was not Obamacare. But I was never, and it was never given. And to this day, if you look at the agenda of the Hispanics, done in 1990, every single Secretary of Health puts it out with a different letter and a different signature, but nothing has changed. So it seems to me sometimes when I look at, we are 62 million people, 18.7%. I truly believe that we won this election for President Biden. And I still believe that we have not gotten to the recognition that we deserve.
As Hispanic or Latino.
As Hispanics. Somewhere people believe that the 11 million that are not here legally is the Hispanics that they count as 18.7. They don't know that between patriotism, ethics, God's fear, family life, that we have all the values that are representative of American conservatism in a way. We do not weaken the American fabric. We strengthen it. And somewhere along the way, we are so subdivided in between. Am I Mexican-American at 56%? Am I Puerto Rican at 19.5%? Am I Cuban at 5%? Am I Central South at 14%? And I am 7% that still are deciding who are they. So as long as that is the way, there was a poll done in the United States where they asked Latinos, Hispanics, do you have a leader? 64% said no, 10% said no one. So I figured, if you don't know who you are, how do you know where you're going? And in that sense, unless we really take away this issue of if it's not a Cuban, the leader is not a Puerto Rican, we're not going to go anywhere. The African Americans speak with one voice. We speak with echoes. And as long as the echo, you will not be able to be heard. And for that reason, maybe we just, every time I go to a meeting, is the browns and the blacks. And sometimes I wonder, who is talking for the browns? So it's really interesting because in the last US Census, when they look at the Hispanics, we were a lot of people. 38 million checked the white race. I think it was 15 million went for more than one race. 2.9 went for more than 2 races, and 1.5 says Black. The other were in the 600,000, 500,000 between Asian Pacific Islanders and Native Americans. But that really lets you know that we still in our own skin do not feel comfortable with who we are. And as long as we will always vote and vote and vote, but we will never climb. They deserve it. So it's almost, if power goes with the amount of people that are Latinos, then we will have 16% of the power positions in this place. We don't. We have one Secretary of Health. So sometimes I wonder if we have to request more than respect. The time will come. The time will come because today the Latinos, we have more investments, $1.7 billion to this economy. That is bigger than the gross national product of Argentina, of Australia. So have our people know how great we are? If our GDP is bigger than those 2 countries, then we must be very important. However, we only talk about the large number of Hispanic small businesses, which is bigger than any other. But we don't have so much to make me feel proud that I support this country. I give in those small businesses close to 3 million jobs to people that are there because we Hispanics work. And more than that, we spend a lot of money in taxes in this United States. So someday we're going to need a spokesperson that talks about our values and our vision and make sure that we get out of where we are and start deciding, you know, the time has come to have a piece of the American pie. And at 62 millions, I want to tell you at what temperature I want it baked. When that day comes, that's the day we're going to get out there. However, in doing that, we cannot forget that other groups like ours need a piece of the same pie. And
That's
as long
right.
as we not unite, we're not going to get anywhere. We're not going to get anywhere.
Amen. That's right. And that's I so appreciate that. Thank you for sharing that. It actually is a great segue to my next question, which is, as we focus on Hispanic heritage and our communities this month, I'd love to hear from you what you believe are the biggest needs of the community and what opportunities healthcare organizations like ours can do to meet them.
Education.
Mm.
Education and health. There are many others. Education and health. When we look at 62 millions of us, 18.7% of the whole United States, 330 million, it's not fair that we only have 6,500 doctors, 8% nurses, 6% lawyers, when the need is so intense for becoming. But 72,000 have only finished high school.
Yeah.
And 29% of us entered the four-year colleges since 2019. We're moving, but not as much as we should. And the issue is that we're so content, as I said before, to stay in the 2 years, which God is great that we have a place to go. But still, the 4 years are the ones in where the others are truly showing their worth.
Yeah.
That's one thing. And the thing is, people ask me, well, so why are you not so more educated like the others? I said, well, do we have all of us computers at home that tells me exactly when can I apply to college? What are the financials, becas that I can get out there that is not only the Pell? What is it there that tells me the deadlines for getting into college? Then on top of that, we work at least 30 hours a week so that I can pay my tuition because my family depends on me. So what happens? 51% of us finish the 4 years of college in 6 years, not in 4, because for us, maintaining our family is as important as our future. We cannot be egoistas. It's just in the values. So education is crucial. But on the same token, we don't like to borrow money, maybe afraid that my name will be checked with a list and realize that I'm not here in a way that I should, and therefore I create problems not only for me, but for my family. So I pay as I go rather than buy. And then I am so petrified of asking for una beca, like if they're not going to recognize my name, don't be afraid. What can they tell you? No? Well, you thought about it anyway, so what have you lost? So education, until we get educated with more master's degrees, with more doctorate degrees, with more lawyers, more teachers, more people in Congress that decide to get out of the Congress if they do not serve the community. So many people put you in that position and they believe that it's like Duvalier for life. No, you did for me, you stay. You didn't do for me, enjoy the 4 years. It was nice meeting you, but we don't do that because we believe in honor. Latinos, honor is more important than life itself. So sometimes I say, don't confuse my honor with weakness. Just help me with this sense of my pride for my race that does not allow me to beg. And therefore, help me cross that line without making me feel stupid, inept, or patronized. That part of our culture may be keeping us behind. Because the other ones from presentados, and they are right there fighting for everything. They are not afraid, but our honor doesn't to be vociferous, aggravating people in your face. Don't. So education is crucial. The other thing that I think is health. Still, 1 out of every 3 Latinos do not have health insurance. Okay, we did a little bit better with Obamacare, but we still are not out there. And our employers sometimes do not pay either our health care. And worse, Even having an employed person in our family does not give us the ability to be able to participate into healthcare. Why? Because we are rich enough that we cannot participate in Medicaid, but poor enough that we cannot participate in the marketplaces. But we are 1 out of every 3 still does not have any insurance in this United States of America. And worse, 60% of the African Americans and the Latinos that need this live in the South. And this, Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, and Texas are the 12 states, together with the Dakotas, North Dakota, South Dakota, and the Carolinas, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Wisconsin. They have not implemented the extension of Medicaid. That's exactly where we live. And if that's the case, in the absence of that, most of our people will not be able to participate whatsoever in getting healthcare through Medicaid. And then on top of that, they put what they call the employment category. You have to show that you were employed to be able to get into Medicaid. And for most people, that was like, you assume that I'm lazy and you assume that I have no ethics. So therefore, 3 states drop out of this. But now President Biden has brought forward what he calls the NPR. I think is a national one, is one of the things that he just did that allows for some states without Medicaid expansion that they have money enough to be able to do it if so they desire. I don't see anybody moving, so we still have 12 states where we live that basically we don't have Medicaid expansion. And on top of that, everybody in medicine now is using telemedicine. Yeah. And even though we use telemedicine in the rural areas where some of our people live, they have no chance to do that. And even worse, we heard about it. So even though we are so acutely positive and useful of everything that we do with our phones, the youth, our elderly do not do it as good as we do. But one thing that worries me, which is bad news and good news, and that is that at least 54% of us get the messages that we need for our health from the television or the radio. Not really source that we trusted. Television and radio. So I always say, if you want something done for the Latinos that somebody that is dying needs to live, put it in a soap opera. And they will pay attention immediately and they will change their. So they change their behavior for what they see in television and hear in the radio. But they should be going to the doctor. What happens is that when you go to the doctor, they do not know how we respond to the care. And if you offend my honor, I will never go back. So we Latinos buy the prescription of the doctor, but we do not buy the refill because he or she forgot to tell us that we have a chronic disease for which we have to be taking this pill forever. So what happens? Doña Fela needs a pill of high blood pressure. I have 4. We share. The other thing is that we don't like to be told the name of the pill. I want to know, is it the blue pill, the pink pill, the white pill? It's just the way that it is. So our ideas of medications are a little bit strange. The other thing that is we use a lot of other stuff that people do not know or don't care to talk about it. Sobos, espiritistas, santeros, you know how it is. 11 of us use in mayormente los cubanos. So, a santeria. So this is the way that we also believe in health, and some of the intelligent, college educated are using it as well. So we have idiosyncrasies. We don't visit doctors to be able to tell me that I need the influenza shot. That's stupid. I am pregnant. I go there for my first visit because this is a normal part of life. So why do I have to go back until I have the baby? Me, go to a psychiatrist, you're out of your mind. I don't need anybody. The stigma is too intense. So indirectly, that pride kills us from the opportunities of finding better things for our mental health. So as we go to the doctor, I always tell my medical students, don't you dare ask a question about sexual health, about infidelities, about contraception in the presence of a family member more than the one that you're talking to. You are hurting the privacy that is so unique to the Latino community. And okay, we are loyal. We are the super loyal consumers and doctors' followers. We will go to see the doctor that my doctor that is retiring tells me to go when he or she's gone. We are loyal. The second thing is the gringos like those 2 feet of distance. We, we believe that that must be that I have bad odor, that you don't want to see me. So I want to be able to be that close and put your hand in my shoulder so that I connect with your eyes. As I told my medical students, even when the person lowers their eyes, is not disrespect. Is that's the measure of respect we have for physicians in this country, and therefore continue speaking, looking at me, even if I'm looking down. So all those things of culture, idiosyncrasies, pill utilization, and the issue of what happened in our life are just not knowledge bound by all of us in our group.
Yeah.
We need to know how good we are so that then we can shove it, but we don't know it. Come look at COVID. Look at what happened to COVID. I remember I called the task force and I told them, would it be kind enough of you to translate in Spanish what Dr. Fauci said, Dr. Birx said, and even the president said? They say no, because then we have to translate for all the other groups. In the interim, I always says we were what I call the 432. We were really infected. We were really down, and we were really not see the doctor because I was petrified of not coming back home. But did anyone told me that one mask protects me from COVID, but one mask was $1 and $1 will buy me 3 hamburgers? Did anyone put it in the context of my culture? So what hurt me the most is that for the first time in the life of those ones that were not here legally, they got a permit from ACE with a letter saying that they could work and be freely out in the street because they work in a meat packing company. Because when the Americans felt bad during the pandemic, they didn't have enough meat to eat. It was the Latinos, the useful, the healthy ones that went with that ACE pass to work in our meat packing companies. And in that moment, 243 of them got infected because no one told them that some of them didn't have a mask and they were not even asked to wear it. So they got infected and many of them died. But they had a pass. But no one paid attention to anything that had to do Latinos. Everybody was just talking about, and the Blacks are dying and the Blacks are doing, but we were right there neck on neck in the dying, in the infections, and in the people that basically didn't know too much about the information. 6 feet of distancing. Who was going to sleep with Abuela when our houses are petite?
Yeah.
My culture was not respected in the area of COVID. And I sometimes believe that some of our people died when they wanted to be alive, but they didn't know how to go ahead and do it. So COVID was a very negative part in our lives and a very negative part in communication with 18.7% of the people who work in this land. So education and health are going to be crucial at this moment. And I think once we have those two in good control, we will be able to go then into housing, because 49% of Latinos own their house and 46% of African American own their house. But there's a law that protects me about anything that interferes with race, sexual orientation, children in the house, you name it. You cannot prejudice me in a house or in a vecindario where I want to live. There's a law that protects me. However, when you look at the evictions, absolutely 26% evicted that happen to be brown and black, and more than anything, women more than men. So if that's is the law protecting me? So many times I assume that when the law passes is to protect me, but somewhere along the way, somebody in your neighborhood has to follow up if the law that was created to protect you is doing exactly what the law was meant to be. So President Reagan used to say, one of the worst sentences that people hear is, I am from the government and I'm here to help you. Follow up what is made on your behalf. No one is going to do it better than you. And so many times I think there are laws that have been passed for helping. Even now, they are not really out there helping us. So we have to request much more that our people in Congress, which right now, I think that there are 45 in the House and 7 in Congress. And so we tend to let them be there until they die. And then when they die, they get their children. Please, let's learn. I'll give my life in your hands and you give me your job in my vote. Let's meet.
There's so many golden nuggets that you just dropped. And I also am aware that I'm sure there are some audience members that want to ask some questions. So I do want to invite Christian and Caleb on with us so that they can help us field any questions that our audience may have for you.
Good, there's none.
Oh, no, there actually is. So Erica, I don't know if you want us to just start reading, but the first one that you received from Adriana says, what would you say to a Latina girl who wants to be a doctor and work in public health?
I say, you know, one thing that I really like, I went to give a Hispanic Month speech at Dartmouth, one of the top 10. 2 or 3 years ago, they only had 3 Latinos. And now they had at least 20 from Central, South America, even DACA, okay? I was so impressed that they are really trying to lure students of our race to come into medical school. And so if that's the case, I also believe that a master's in public health is the way to go for the future as well. And I will tell you why. We doctors are a little bit too proud sometimes and a little bit too, how do I love me? Let me count the ways. That public health gives you the humbleness that no one teaches you in medicine. And you will find work being done for people that will never even know your name. That humbleness in helping others without knowing that you have something to earn by having help is something that we need in medicine today. As I said before, humanity in medicine is dying. And we really need to go back to that. What we have is people with white coats in Google deciding your disease and what tests are they going to do. And sometimes I have this nightmare that if the electricity in the whole United States goes dead, we have a lot of people in white that cannot think. So if that's the case, and with that electronic medical record machine right in front of the doctor, but in behind the patient, it takes me away from knowing your name, your pain, your facial features. What is it that your body language is telling me? Too little time, too many bills. And then it's prescription do you need and for how long, and have a nice day, and you don't even know my name. So medicine is changing, and so we need more doctors from our culture to be able to understand that you have to meet a little bit more con Doña Rosa, and maybe you will get a little cake on Monday because, you know, they pay you with love, not just with the bills of Medicare and Medicaid. So don't be afraid to apply, but apply to many universities. One of them will get you. Don't apply to one. And be forceful enough to be able to see which becas are out there to take you. I have to tell you, in the public health service, where I was a surgeon general, we will pay your medical career. We will pay your nursing career. But you have to give me back in service for as many years as I paid your tuition. Or I send you to work in a place where there's health disadvantages. So you work as many years in health disadvantaged areas as I pay you your tuition. But I pay your tuition, I pay your books, I give you a salary, I give you a rank for as long as you're studying. And so I would say, when in doubt, go in the National Health Service Corps and ask, what is it that you need to do to be able to enter the public health and have them pay your tuitions, okay?
Great. Christian, you want to take the next one?
Thank you. Buenas tardes, Doctora Novela. The next question we have is, as Surgeon General, how did you advocate for yourself when you were in a room full of people, probably white men, that weren't your gender or culture?
That never deters me. If you feel insecure, your body language shows it. I have never have a hair of insecure in my life, and even less when you have a uniform with 3 stars, which means you're a general. And when you don't like him, you tell them, go to your room. So the uniform, the power, the responsibility of the land, they could have been every color. The Surgeon General came to their place to talk to them, and no disrespect is going to be necessary because I will answer your questions. One of the things that is very important in life, I always feel half the group comes to listen to what you are saying, and half the group comes to see if what you said is true. That's why one thing that I learned early in my career is you do not invent policy out of fear. You go very well prepared. You talk about facts, never about opinions.
Great segue into the next one is what advice will you give to young Hispanics, Latinx coming up in the workplace or education system today?
Don't be afraid. You know, there's always a teacher. There's always someone that can be your mentor. And you can always tell them what is it that you want to be when you grow up. If that person doesn't listen to your quest or to your desire, there's always a teacher, a social worker in your school that you can go and talk about what is it that you want to be. But there's always a friend. There has always, you need a friend that believes in you, even when at times you don't believe in yourself. And if it's a little bit older than you, it's even better because they have a little bit of institutional memory and they can get you to the places that you need to apply. But do not let anything deter you of what you want to do because the person that you go is not interested in listening what you want to say. And that happened to me many times. A lady told me, there was a lady that would only approve of the people who went into medical school at the University of Puerto Rico. I never went to her. She said, my hands were small enough for me to be a dentist. She's still waiting for me to take her teeth out. Me, you lateralize and you do whatever is best for you, but always with facts and with people who are helping you, people who really, really want you to do good. There's always someone there that will be able to give you this advice. And sometimes in our families, it's not our family, the one that is most prepared because we are the first generation that goes to college. Find someone who believes in you, and then that person will help you in at the same time. There are many conferences that come from many colleges, so many times looking for, sorry to say, our quota, the Hispanic quota. Then take advantage of that. Hyphenate your name when you apply. Hyphenate. Never apply to just one. Apply to many, many, many. One of them will be able to find you, and then you will be able to follow the steps to go into that. But I always said, don't say I'm going to graduate from Harvard. Say I'm going to graduate from Harvard, even if it takes me a lifetime. Don't put end limits to your goals. You'll get frustrated, and no one ever knows that you are the one that is frustrated. So I would say, study. You have to study. You have to get good grades. And now that they are admitting so many students to medical school, 3,000 apply and they take 250. You have to be really well prepared. And at the same time, they're looking now, not so much for your grades. They're looking now much more for your character. What do you do in your community? Who do you help in the nursing homes? Are you a Girl Scout, a Boy Scout? Do you go out there and help somebody to cross the street? It's the human aspects of what have you done with your life rather than the nerd that only studies and get good grades. Now, I know that the most important members of my class that graduated from medicine and the ones that have the biggest practices are not the ones who have A's, are the ones who knew the names of their patients, follow them very closely, always felt your pain, and they will really embrace you when you came in with a little friendly reminder of how is the family. It's the humanistic aspect of medicine that now I am looking when I am interviewing the potential candidates of medicine, but you have to study.
Thank you very much for that insight. The next question we have is from Alejandra. What medical school curriculum changes might create more Latinx physicians and close health disparities?
You know, one of the things that I have gone this time to many, many, many areas in where the discussions have been equity versus equality, health disadvantages. But, you know, I think we have to get a little bit out of the health disadvantages and see what other disadvantages are in my life that I have to first be able to solve them to then look into the health. Is my house falling down? Do I own a house? Do I have food to eat? Do I live in a food desert in where I could never buy a fruit because it's not part of my neighborhood? Are there things in my neighborhood in where the kids and the people, the homeless are out there making me believe that that's the future of my life? Look in the surroundings of my life, and then let's look into the points of health and points of education. You cannot just go be healthy if your house is crumbling, if you don't eat good food, if your family basically has tuberculosis and no one has ever diagnosed them. We are a compendium of multiples before we start pointing just one thing at this moment. It's almost like, is it equality or is it equity? Equality, same for all. Equity, you give me what I need because we all have different needs. So I would say, if you study and you apply, they are going to find you, but there's never going to be something out there just because you're Latino. As of now, it's not happening. So if you go ahead and hyphenate your name, Hey, we're starting with something, shove it. I have two names. I speak with an accent, but I do not think with an accent. That means that I know two languages. Which other one do you know? I'm not going to let anyone ever embarrass me because of my accent. That means that I have two languages. You only have one. So the other thing is prepare for that interview, that it might be crucial in the acceptance once they get you into believe that you can be that. But you study for your SAT a lot, because eventually I have the feeling they're going to look much more at your character than they're going to look at your grades. The grades got you there. Is the character the one that is going to open the door? So do things for your neighborhood and document everything. Have someone that really knows what you did. And letters of recommendation of important people are always good. And I always tell people, you know, when I did my master's in public health, there was a class, government and health. And that class I adore. For the first time, I realized that government controls my life. And therefore, I wanted to know a lot about government. So I will tell all of us, you have a congressman, you have a senator, you find a way by which 1 week you spend with your congressman or you spend with your senator. That puts you in context of how things really work in the place in where you always dream that you want to be. And always learn how to write a memo that is interested to your person in Congress. What's the subject? How many people are going to be safe for you trying to involve yourself in that subject? How much is it going to cost? And how much media is going to get you because you're going to save so many lives? Half a page. You will learn pretty soon what is that is needed, and leave your ego at the door. You're there to learn, not to be thinking that you went to Congress. Remember, give a week of your life to a congressional person. Be a congressional walker, observer. That's the only way you know exactly what you need to be successful from the eyes of the ones who will take care of you.
Thank you for that. Our next question is from Dustin, and he wants to know, do you think higher education institutions are doing a good enough job of recruiting Latinx students into these medical programs? What do you think they can do better?
You can do better. They're not going to come and find you. You have to be in their face. There's a meeting where they're looking for someone. The meeting is over, you go and introduce yourself. I am so and so and so. I am in my third year of high school. I'm in my third year of college. I would like very much to do this. So you have a card. They're not going to find you. I always remember I was a member of a very important board in the United States. And when they told me, I'm looking for minorities, I said, you go to Puerto Rico and every mother is going to give you their son. Just come to Puerto Rico and you have every minority. No, the government pays me only for some others. I quit the board on that day. I realized then that they are much more maneuver for the monies they get by accepting one group versus the other. So we have to come to their place. They're not going to find you. I would suggest go to every meeting in the Hispanic months that you can, in where they're talking about opportunities, and go to every meeting in all the African American months that are talking about opportunities as well. After all, remember, 1.5 of Latinos declare themselves Black ascendants in the last US Census. And 15 million declared that they were more than one race, and 2.9 million declared that they were two races plus Latino. Take advantage of that mixture. You don't have to identify which one are you, but you belong there as well.
Oh, Dr. Novello, this has been so lovely. And I was thinking about a quote that you said at an annual meeting at the American Public Health Association that stood out, and I'll paraphrase it, but you said, the Surgeon General is an officer where you're not a politician. Your 15 minutes of fame never come. Everybody talks about what you do wrong, but no one talks about all the good you do. And at this moment, it's extremely important that we realize that without the Surgeon General, there's not a spokesperson that has nothing to gain, but what is the best in data and facts for the benefit of the American people. I want to wrap up this conversation with a nod to you and affirm you have done so well, and we honor you for the change you've made and the path you've paved for all of us. Thank you so much, Doctora Novello, and thank you everyone else for joining us today. Have a good rest of your day.
But Erica, remember it so many times beyond what I always do, which is I talk about facts. I gave you my deep emotions about being a Hispanic in this country with a little bit of power and recognition. And still, I feel that we haven't gotten to the point in where all of us should participate. But I hope I gave you some points of wisdom of what we need to do in the future, because we're winning the elections for this United States of America, and we still do not have the representation that we need in this country of ours. The time will come to have a piece of the American pie, and the time has come to tell them at what temperature we want it baked. We were in the little leagues, but we are now in the big leagues. So go and be somebody.
That's right. Thank you so much, Doctora. It's such an honor and such a gift. So inspiring. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you so much.